What's up guys, my name is Liam and today I'm going to be taking a look at the Gitoper G2. This is a larger lightweight style gaming mouse similar to something like the Logitech GPro Superlight or the Vaxee XE Wireless in size, and I've been getting requests to check it out. So is this going to be the perfect gaming mouse for you? Let's check it out. And before we get started, I did want to let you know metkeys.com did send this out to me, but everything you'll be hearing in this video are going to be my own words and my own opinions. Here's what we're looking at the front of the box. On the back, there's minimal details here. This is using a 3395 sensor. You can see the dimensions and the weight specifications. Inside the box, mouse on the top as usual, and they do have this really cool black and red colorway I like here. Here's what the top looks like. And here's what the bottom looks like. And then underneath, they do provide a box with all the accessories in it. And inside, we do have this black USB-C cable, and it does come with the dongle adapter. They do include this instruction manual, and then they also have a set of grips that they include. And it does come with an additional set of PTFE skates. As you can see, these are the white ones, as opposed to the red ones that do come installed on the mouse itself. So starting over at the bottom, real basic stuff. You do have the power button down here in the bottom right corner. That's on. That's off. Your DPI button is over here in the bottom left, and they do have the storage compartment for the dongle right here in the top middle. I'm not sure if there's any type of a performance difference between the red PTFE skates and the white ones that do come included with it, but as I started using these, they felt a little bit slower at first, but the more I started using them, they started breaking in. They are kind of harder style skates. They did kind of speed up and get a little bit quicker. The sensor placement is a little bit lower, so it did take me a little bit of an adjustment period to get used to it. The shell integrity feels really solid. I don't get any type of bending or flexing. It felt great in the hands. This does feel like it is some type of a straight plastic injection mold. I don't believe there is any additional type of a coating on the surface, and it does feel a bit smoother to the touch. And when it comes to the click implementation, I do feel like they are just a little bit heavier. As you can see there is just a little bit of play. The total click quality, it does get a little bit heavier towards the back, and there is a little bit of play side to side, but overall when I was using this in game, it felt pretty good. And then you kind of do get the exact same thing over here on the right click as well. And if you are someone that plays at the front of the mouse, once you do start making your way up to the front, it does make the buttons have a little bit more play, and you can make a little bit of contact there with the actual base. The rubber on the scroll wheel does feel really grippy, and it has pretty defined steps. Since it's a larger style mouse and it is so lightweight and it has a hollow shell, it is kind of a noisy sounding scroll wheel. But the steps, they do feel pretty notchy, and they're on the lighter side, I would say, for the most part. But once you do click the actual center scroll wheel button, it does feel pretty lightweight. The side buttons are really thin and they do feel real small, but there was never an issue where I had a problem activating them or finding the placement between the rear side button and the front side button. But just as the main switches, I do feel like the side buttons on here are pretty spongy as well. They do have quite a bit of pre-travel there, and then when you activate it, has a little bit of post-travel. And since the buttons are so small, you don't really get to push it too much into the shell. Same thing on the rear and even on the front side button as well. All right, so let's drop the click and build quality sound check. And when it comes to the weight, dropping this here on my scale, looks like it's coming in at approximately 58.2 grams. They've also done a really good job with the balance. It feels solid on the front to back, and it looks like they even nailed it with the left to right. The software looks familiar and easy to use, easy to adjust the debound setting time down to 0 milliseconds. And then after that, all you had to do is adjust the DPI, and it seemed to be at 1000 hertz polling rate out of the box. These are the settings that I used, and they worked really well for me. And when it comes to the performance, the battery life is rated at 70 hours. This also is using the CompX solution. So as I was testing it out with many different types of mouse pads, playing a couple different games with it, it all around felt solid, and I didn't notice anything that seemed too concerning or troublesome. But I have actually been really enjoying this shape. It is a little bit different in the sense that it has a little bit more aggressive curves on the side, and I do feel like the the bottom here, the rear end of the mouse, it does feel really aggressive towards the bottom. And then coming over here to the top is a little bit rounded, but it kind of has this a little bit flatter feeling, so it doesn't feel as high up or tall as something like the G Pro Superlight. But out of the box, it felt pretty natural in the hands. I just kind of had to get used to this rear end here. But as you can see here, this side profile has pretty flat sides. So I really felt like it did a pretty good job at accommodating all styles of grips. And first up, when comparing it to the Logitech G Pro Superlight 2, as you can see here from this angle, the front of these mice, they actually look really similar to one another. Yet when you do come to the bottom, you can tell that they are pretty different. The G Pro Superlight feels like a much flatter mouse, and it has a much more narrower end, where this does have more aggressive curves on the sides, and it has a much wider rear end. But in the grip width, in the very most center point here, the G Pro Superlight, since it is flatter, it does feel wider than the G2. Coming over to the rear, the top profile on these mice don't feel that far apart from one another. The overall grip width on the G2 does feel just a little bit wider, but as you can see here, the G Pro just sits up just a little bit taller. And then finally, looking at both of these from the side, the G2 does feel like a bit of a flatter mouse, and as you can see here, the hump profile feels like it's slightly moved a little bit further back on it. And next up, when comparing it to the Vaxee XE Wireless, I do feel like the size profile of both of these are pretty similar to one another. As you can see here, the G2, it does have more aggressive curves. It does have this wider back. And I would say in the middle part here that the Vaxee XE Wireless does feel a little bit wider. On the back profile at the top of the Vaxee XE, it does feel a little bit flatter, whereas the G2 feels a little bit more rounded at the top. But when you're holding both of these in hand, they feel pretty equal as far as the grip width goes. And then finally, looking at both of these from the side, as you can see, both of them kind of have the aggressive fall off from the hump, but as you can see, the same thing, the G2, the hump is kind of moved a little bit back more towards the rear, as opposed to the Vaxee XE Wireless where it feels more centered. And then finally, we'll be putting it up against the VGN Dragonfly F1. Starting over on the bottom, both of these kind of have a similar style of an aggressive curvature towards the middle of these mice, but I do feel like on the G2, the rear end does flare out a lot more and it feels a bit more aggressive than the Dragonfly. And then looking at both of these from the back, the VGN Dragonfly feels a little bit flatter at the top, but then you can also see the profile. It does feel a lot more narrow at the top. The VGN Dragonfly, it is a bit flatter and it does sit a little bit lower. Alright guys, so that wraps things up on the Gitoper G2, and this is currently sitting in at $69.99. So if you have any questions or feel like I left anything out, please let me know down in the comments below. If you've enjoyed watching this video and you're interested in seeing more videos like this in the future, please drop this video a like and subscribe to my channel. I've left affiliate links for some of these mice down in the description below if you're interested in picking any of them up and supporting the channel. Thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.